Christine Edwards, fascinating woman. She's an attorney, but she is running to be a judge in Hillsborough County, Florida, and we talk about what that process is like. Uh, it's not political at all. I don't know what you know about this, but I don't know her political party affiliation, and that's by design. The bar says you're not allowed to do that, which I think is a wonderful thing. But we talk about some of the cases that she's practiced. She has a wonderful heartwarming story about her uncle and how she helped him in one particular case. While she was going to law school, she was clerking and read up on the case, and it's just wonderful what happened there. And just knowing the rules and being a lawyer is always, I asked some pretty kind of rudimentary questions that I just didn't understand, like who are judges accountable to? If a judge makes a poor ruling, what happens there, and what do you do with the law when it's the letter of the law, but you have to interpret it as the intent? What's the intent of the law and how it was written, and where that struggle is. She's been a lawyer since 2012. She's been practicing, and now she wants to be on the other side. And we talk about some of the issues there. And it's just a fascinating discussion about our system here in the States and how it works. But Christine is delightful, smart, and disciplined. Very interesting take on discipline as well. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Disciple Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Oh, Christine Edwards, thank you so much for your time today. Very excited to talk to you. Please tell me about Leo and Lionel.
You know what? I'm so glad you're leading with that question because they're my favorite people in the world. Well, they're not people. They're my dogs. My dachshund, and Leo is a rescue Maltese mix. He's an old grumpy man. He's about 13 years old, but Lionel keeps him young. We actually just moved into a new house, and they got a big yard. So Lionel is loving getting all the lizards out of the yard and bringing them into the bed and showing me all the things that he captures throughout the day. So they're very fun.
Yeah, they're still, even at any age, they're predatory. They're still hunter gatherers, aren't
They
they?
really are. He's very good at it. So
Yeah. What is it about law? I know your father said you were always going to be a lawyer, and he talks about, you arguing out of penalties and things like that. What is it about law, though, that attracts you at such a young age?
I don't know if it was law or if it was just the idea that I could argue a case or I had a voice or I could speak up. And I've always been opinionated. And so I think at a young age, whether it was trying to get out of being grounded or letting me go to a friend's house, I always had this sort of zest to fight for what I thought was right, arguing cruel and unusual punishment to take away my electronics was a good, one of my favorite go-tos. So, and then, I found my way in education when I went to school, and that was really what solidified it for me, was getting the experience and looking at different areas of law and going, oh my gosh, like I really, not only do I have a love for the kind of thing that talent or ethic that, work ethic that you would need to do something like this. I really like the subject matter. And then going on and working for a law firm when I was 19, then I was like, oh yeah, I'm home. I know exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Mm. Yeah, it just always seems to me I have some lawyer friends, and it's just like they know the rules, Christine, and if you want to argue, you have to know what the parameters are. You have to know what the rules are, and it's just such an edge, such an advantage.
The rules are the most important part. And you learn that in law school. And I think if you can really um, sort of hone in on that, you always fall back on the rules because the law is going to change, as far as different factual situations and how we apply it to the laws.
Mm, mm.
But the rules are the rules. And so, I actually used to have a rule book right next to my bed and I would read it every night just to keep fresh on the rules.
Wow.
Because you always
Wow.
go back to the rules. They govern. They win the day.
Yeah, they really do. Has technology helped in being a lawyer? Artificial intelligence, etc.?
Well, I'm not real big on the AI. I'm out of school now, and I think that if I was still in law school, I would be really into figuring out what this
Mm,
AI stuff was. And I know that that's coming up in law school and how they're using it. So I'm not real familiar with that. And quite frankly, even though people are like, "Oh, you're really young," I grew up in a firm where my boss was 40 years my senior, and so we had notebooks and we highlighted things and we tabbed things. So you kind of stick with what you know. So I still carry a binder. I still highlight all my cases. I
wow.
don't do anything on the computer. The way it's helped, I will tell you, is being able to access the court better
Mm,
because they're offering a Zoom option for some of the non-evidentiary, non-trial matters. And so that helps practitioners who are trying to be in two places at one time, which is typically what we're always trying to do. So, I could technically be in a courtroom in Pinellas and in Hillsborough at the same time, waiting for
wow.
my case to be called. So it's helped there.
Hmm. So you go to Central Florida in Orlando, then you go to Stetson for your law school, and then so your first kind of push into your first case is your uncle Bobby.
You did some research, huh, Joe?
A little bit.
Little bit. Yeah, yeah. That's second to Leo and Lionel, my second favorite
Mm.
story. Yeah, Uncle Bobby was a convicted drug dealer and he went to prison. He was sentenced to 30 years. And, I often talk about things in the context of substance abuse and mental health because it's an arena that I spend a lot of time in with my current job. And, as is with a lot of addicts, they lose touch with their families and he was somewhat estranged. So, in the beginning when he was writing me, it wasn't something that I was ready to sort of open the door to because I
Mm.
still felt a little disappointed that he wasn't around when my grandparents were getting older and when they were getting sick, and my mom, had to bear a lot of that responsibility. And I felt badly that he wasn't around. So there was months and months that he was trying to communicate with me, and we talk about jail mail. I didn't know that was
Yeah.
a thing until I became a lawyer, and we get jail mail all the time. Me not really wanting to do that. But once I got was open to it and started reading what he was talking about in the same vein that, I always like to fight for people, fight for myself
Mm.
to right what's wrong. I knew no matter what my personal feelings were at the time that I needed to say something about it. So I worked on his case hard for about a year, maybe longer, a year and a half, where when I was down at the courthouse, dropping off paper filings before there was any electronic filing. That was my runner job at the firm. I'd take the filings down to the clerk's office, and then I would sit down there and pull his files and go through them and run
Hmm.
copies and tab them and do the work. And then when I took it to my boss, I said, I know I'm crazy, but will you just look at it and tell me what you think? And he said, all right, kid, let me take a look at it. And I had done all the research and put it together. And then he really honed it into an impressive 3850. And then we filed it. And then that was it. And then we thought, all right, well, we'll see what happens. Those aren't very successful any of the time. And we waited a really long time. It was several years. I think I want to say 2 years after we filed the motion that we actually got a hearing. And by that
Wow.
time I was a lawyer. not a great one because I was only 6 months into practice. So I thought, yeah, Ralph's gonna go in there and he's gonna tell him what's up, and
Hmm.
he's gonna have he's gonna make his argument, and that's gonna be his best shot. And the night before the hearing, he said, kid, you know it better than anybody, so you're gonna do it. I thought,
Wow.
well, that's not gonna work out. How am I going to explain that to him? This 6 month baby lawyer going in there arguing the biggest motion of her probably ever in her career. And it has been the biggest thing that I've ever done. But it was successful. And they vacated his sentence. He had served 5 years. And they found that his constitutional rights had been violated. Listen, he deserved to be where he was for a period of time. What he did was wrong. I'm not advocating for people who do bad things to not be punished for them.
Hmm.
However, the sentence was unjust in its length, and we were able to get him out. The best part of the story is what happens after. So, Bobby would go on to have children for the first time in his 50s. He named his daughter after me. He has a good job. He's sober. So it's a really beautiful thing. Gotta
It's
tell
a
you.
beautiful thing,
Yeah, yeah,
Christine.
yeah.
Yeah. And
I
and
love
the jail mail that you got. So he wasn't saying that he, by the way, the people go through the mail, right? It's paper mail. So they actually have to read everything and it's proofed.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Everything that gets
Yeah.
sent out of the jail is looked at,
It's looked
and
at.
it'll come back to bite you. I've had cases like that where we've
Mm,
got, you get mail from a client, not that comes to you necessarily, but anything that they send out is
is
monitored.
admissible.
Yeah.
Right. And he wasn't pleading his innocent. He was just saying he was just saying, I'm here, but it's unjust. And I'm sure he served his time well. If he didn't, that would have been an issue. There's some other factors there.
100%. Yes. Model prisoner inmate, had no issues while he was there. Did what he was supposed to do. For a man in his 50s to get a 30-year sentence is essentially a death sentence. He would have died there. He would have never gotten another opportunity.
Mm,
And there is some reform and some mitigation and things that we look at when we're looking at drug cases, especially in a world right now where we have an ongoing mental health crisis, and a lot of that dovetails into people using substances. We have an opioid
mm,
crisis right now. And so drug cases are treated a little bit differently. I don't know that I would have been on board if he was in prison for killing somebody, right? I don't
mm.
know if that would have been something that I would have taken on, but I thought that it was worth giving him a second chance, and the court agreed. And what he did with his life later proves that it's something that we should always be thinking about when we are handing down lengthy sentences like that.
Mm. The country really doesn't. I don't know. I'll just say a sweeping statement here, and correct me if you. But we don't really treat kind of ex felons and ex prisoners very well. I know I spent a decent time in Europe, and once they have their sentence, that's it. They can get jobs. It's time served. Here, it's still kind of on the record, and it's kind of a black eye a little bit. Do you agree?
You mean in the prison system?
Yeah. Once you've served your time and you're out, you still
Oh,
kind of.
yeah, yeah. And I see that a lot. And it's sort of like the argument to be counterproductive, right? They
Mm,
come out and then they don't have the opportunity to get a job because they have the felon status,
right.
or there's a stigma that's attached to it. But yet we want them to acclimate back into the community, and we want them to get jobs, and they have to work to have money so that they can pay whatever their probation fines are, or whatever their restitution is for their cases. And so yes, I find that people have a very difficult time reacclimating after leaving. People who are in a trade, like Bobby, he was a trucker. So that was an industry that he was able to get back
Oh,
into
good.
because he had a connection there. And they were open to bringing him back. But, if you didn't start out, remember, he was 50. So he had lived a lot of life. He
Mm,
had a career, he had a job. What happens to the younger people who haven't had an opportunity to establish themselves in a trade or even a
mm,
regular career, and
mm.
don't have something to fall back on when they get out? I think it's very difficult for people to do that.
Yeah, I always hear, "Well, we didn't hire him because he's an ex-felon or he's ex." I said, "Well, he's ex. They served their time. What are they supposed to do? You can't be judged by something at your lowest point in life."
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think that I think we do better now than we used to.
Mm.
we have these programs, or at least I've seen corporations who are offering programs where they are educating employers who are hiring to be more open, and kind of look into what it is, not just say, you're a felon, you're disqualified, we're not even going to take a look at it, but to, say, okay, well, what was it for? And can we get some information? Can we talk to them and see how they, how they feel about where they are now compared to then? And can we humanize the felon status? Can we humanize the inmate?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're running for judge in Hillsborough County, Florida here, of course, C11, I believe, 6-year term. The previous judge has retired. So it's two of you going for the position. Now, why be a judge, Christine? It's a lot of work.
It is. It's a lot of work, but learned when I went back, and I say back into the courtroom because we were out of court for a period of time during the pandemic.
Mm,
And, again, I talk a lot about mental health in this arena. And I struggled like a lot of people were during COVID because, here I was running a practice. I just started my practice and I was used to running around the courthouse and seeing people. And you don't realize how much that interaction is vital, not only to your health, but to how you practice because you're learning and listening in real time with other people. So
hmm,
hear somebody argue something and you go, well, that's stupid. I would never say that, and I won't do it that way. Or you go, oh, that's brilliant. I'm gonna take what I learned here and do that the next time I have a case. Didn't have that anymore, and so I was really itching to get back into the courtroom, and I took that job with regional counsel part time. And in that role, I'm typically the only lawyer in the room because it's only the respondent, the person who is being asked to go into substance abuse treatment, that is afforded counsel. So in
hmm,
that role, you work really closely with the judge, you work very closely with the clerk in in a courtroom setting. And I realized, I'm having to sort of balance health and safety, right? Of somebody who's addicted to drugs, and that being my client and them saying that they don't want to go to treatment, but they're probably not in the best mindset to be making good decisions for themselves.
mm,
And that balance sort of taught me how to really appreciate both sides. And working collaboratively with the judge and the clerk, I thought, I'm really cut out for this. Like, I could do this. I could stand in a place where I had to make decisions and listen to both sides and be objective. And it gave me an
hmm,
opportunity to really see myself in a role that was prepping me, training me, getting me ready for something
hmm,
like that. And then also the practical part of that, running a docket with the clerk, being able to calendar, scheduling hearings, all the other non-sexy things that judges do are important too. And so
hmm.
I thought, I think that's an asset. Anybody who is a candidate can actually tell you how to do that kind of thing, how we would make it accessible for everybody that came into the courtroom the best way that we could, but not just to say it, to tell you how we would do it. I think that's important.
Yeah, we see so many law shows on, and I see the judge, slamming down an order in the court, got the kind of the dramatic kind of things, but they're going behind, they're reading up on things, they're doing a lot of the, like you say, unsexy things that really prep them for everything. People don't see that.
Right. Yeah, and that's at the end of the day, a lot of people, when you're on the campaign trail, you hear what people think is important when they're picking a candidate. They'll ask you
Mm,
certain questions and you kind of can gauge what it is that they're looking for. And a lot of times I don't hear people ask me, like, well, how would you run a calendar, or how would you
mm,
docket a case, or
mm,
how many cases would you take in a day, and how many people could you actually get through in an hour? Those kinds of practical things nobody really asks, but it's the foundation of the job, is to be able to run the courtroom, actually
mm,
get people in and out, but also give them an opportunity that they feel was fair, that you're not just filtering through them like a number. So that balance between giving them enough time and also needing to get to hundreds of cases in one day. How do you really do that? How do you make that
hmm.
happen?
Fascinating. And the rule of law is statewide, right? Is there county law and state law, and then of course there's federal? What guides you?
So in county court, we have a system where we split into county and circuit, and that's going to be here in Hillsborough County. Your county court is going to hear anything that's a misdemeanor in the criminal arena. It's going to hear civil cases up to $50,000, and they're going to handle things like traffic, some municipality stuff, landlord tenant, uh, I don't want to say lesser things. It's a very important job, but
Mm.
we call it the people's court because
Hmm.
you have more access. There's more people coming in to those courts in a capacity that's quicker. So we're not holding. You'll have trials, but you're not probably going to get a trial that lasts for 2 weeks like you would on a felony
Mm.
charge,
Mm.
or so you're working through cases much quicker,
Hmm.
but a broad spectrum of things that could come before the court. Now, your circuit court is the next step up, and that's going to be anything over $50,000 in your civil court, felonies, family law, things like that. So some obviously some crossover, and
Mm.
like the judge that's sitting right now, Judge Matt Smith, he's had to work in a circuit capacity at sometimes he's off, he's given an opportunity to do that and rules on other cases, but for the most part it stays like that, and it's the chief judge who would say where a particular
Mm.
judge is assigned, whether you're going to a civil division, whether you're going to a criminal division, or where you will actually be placed.
And there's no jury on any of these cases.
There are juries, yes.
Oh.
You could pick a jury for a civil case. So let's say you had a small claim that you brought before the court and you wanted a jury, you have a right to a jury. If you
Hmm.
are charged with a DUI, you have a right to have a jury for a DUI. So we
Interesting.
would pull juries for county court. It just wouldn't be what we typically see on Law and Order, where they're in court for weeks and weeks
Mm.
for taking testimony and waiting for a verdict. They're usually quicker, maybe a couple day trials.
Who are judges accountable to? Every once in a while we hear, or even on Law and Order, we hear about some rogue judge who has an agenda, and like, well, how does that get maintained?
Well, in the election process, it's the people, right? If the people don't like
Ah.
you, they can vote you out. If
Mm.
your colleagues think that you're not doing a good job, they're going to run against you when you come up because it's every 6 years. You don't get in there and get to stay forever like a federal judge.
Ah.
You could pull opposition from a colleague who thinks that you're, not living up to the job that you're supposed to be doing, or in the process of, God forbid, you did something that you needed to be disciplined for.
Mm.
You're still governed by the Florida bar. You still have to follow all the same rules that we did when we were
Ah.
lawyer that you do as a lawyer. And then on top of the Florida bar, you've got a judicial committee that oversees what you do, and the courts. You have an appellate court who's going to look at your rulings and tell you when you don't get your rulings right. And
Hmm.
they can strike down your rulings. But for discipline, yeah, still the Florida bar, still the judicial commission that's going to be watching you, and then of course the people if they don't like you.
Hmm. Certainly, there's the voter, but I didn't realize that the appellate court. Forgive me, I don't understand all the implications of the law system. But there's an appellate court that reviews all your judgments.
If they go up on appeal. So
Ah.
if somebody appeals you, you give a decision and there's grounds for there's an appellate issue and they have grounds to appeal, it would be reviewed.
Hmm. And Christine, it's a non-political position.
Yeah.
That's so refreshing.
It's non-political, but I'll tell you what, that campaign trail gets a little,
Ah.
there's still, politics in almost everything that you do, I think. People are always very interested to hear what side you're, especially right now with how
Mm.
polarized we are. We got this big
Mm.
election coming up and people are dying to know. And they're real disappointed when you can't tell them and they think that you're being sort of, you're
Evasive.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
they think that you're, like, just trying to hide the ball, and that you have to tell them, "We're prohibited from, engaging in party politics," and I think people are disappointed to hear that, but it's the way it has to be because you don't want somebody who has such strong, opinions and biases that's going into a courtroom to make decisions every day. You want somebody who is, fair and will hear
Mm.
both sides.
Yeah, like you said, the people were so polarized, especially with the election coming up. People want to put people in boxes quickly.
Yes,
And most of America is not that way. They're right in the middle. They lean
right.
both ways. And it's refreshing to see. Is that just a local thing in Hillsborough County, or is that nationwide? Do you
Yeah,
know?
all judges are supposed to be
Uh,
nonpartisan, yeah.
oh, good. Do judges have to be lawyers?
Yes, yes, and, in Florida, you have to have been a lawyer for 5 years is and people always say, to me, they'll say, "Well, you're so young." And I said, "Well, I've been practicing for 12 years. That's twice the time the Florida bar says that I need
Mm.
to be to be practicing in order to to qualify at least on paper to get through the door." And I always refer back to Judge Ashley Moody, who became a judge. She's our attorney general. She became a judge, I think, in her early 30s. So, and has gone on to do great things, and is now our attorney general, respectfully. So,
Yeah, it seems, when did you decide to do this? I mean, it's to be a judge, Christine. That's tremendous. That's so admirable.
thank you. I have known that I was going to do this. I did think that it would be something I did later on in my life.
Mm.
There was some benchmarks that I had for myself, that getting to a place where I felt like I was ready, things that I wanted to accomplish, that I felt were important for the role, before I would actually put my name in the hat. And after going back and working in the capacity at the Marchman Corps, I felt very confident and ready for the position. And I would say about a year out, I knew I wanted to run in 2024. So I started watching some of the trends of people that we thought may be leaving the bench. I wasn't going to run against any sitting judge. That wasn't something that I had planned to do. So
Ah.
I was waiting for an open seat. And it just so happened that a friend of mine was in an elevator, overheard a conversation about somebody retiring, and called me. And I had already filled out all my paperwork and sort of had it on me for months. And so I called that judge and I said, Judge, I heard a rumor, and I certainly don't want to out your retirement, but this is something that I've been thinking about doing. Can you share anything with me? And we had that conversation, and I was actually sitting down at the. Are you from Tampa?
No, I live here now, but I'm not from.
Okay, but you live here now. Do you know where the
Yeah.
Tampa Club is in the Bank of America
I
building?
certainly do,
Okay.
yes.
So I was actually down there working. I hang out there sometimes to work. And when I got the, go ahead that I wasn't going to be, spreading a rumor or doing something that was going to be
Hmm.
against the sitting judge, I ran from the Tampa Club down to the county center that same, I mean, he probably
Whoa.
got off the phone and thought, where was this girl when she called me? Because about 30 minutes later, I filed.
Good for you. Good
Yes,
for you.
I wanted to be the first one in there.
Wow. Tell me what you mentioned, the Marchman Act. Tell me about that, the
Yeah,
cases.
the Marchman Act is a problem-solving court. It's a very special court, where if you have a family member that's struggling with mental health and substance abuse disorders, you can petition. You file a petition, and you ask the court to intervene. And we then go and pick up the respondent and take them to what we call the ARF. It's the Adult Receiving Facility, Addiction Receiving Facility, where we have them assessed, and the clinician will make a recommendation as to whether or not they need substance abuse treatment. We test them, see what they have in their system. We detox them if that's necessary,
Wow.
kind of get a baseline of where they are. And then they come into court, they're given counsel. That's me. And I help them through that process. So a lot of times, I would say most of the times, they agree. They recognize this is a court that's meant to be for people who are really struggling, the worst of
Mm.
the worst. This is not a place where you bring, the social drinker, or the, I don't even want to say occasional drug user, because that doesn't sound right. But
Right.
someone who's really struggling, is this is what this court is designed for. So by the time they get there, they're sort of getting to the point where they recognize they need some help,
Hmm.
and they're usually agreeable to go to treatment. But they do have an option to have a hearing. They can say, I'm not going to treatment and I don't want to do that. And we'll have like a little mini trial, and the court will decide whether or not they meet the criteria to be involuntarily placed for substance abuse treatment. And then
Hmm.
we put them through rehab, whether that's a residential facility or an outpatient setting, and we monitor their good progress throughout the course. And they really don't come before the court again unless they're non-compliant. And then in that case, we either up their level of care. Let's say if they're an outpatient, they're non-compliant, they're not going to their groups, they're testing positive, whatever it is, we may evaluate them for a more restrictive environment like residential. For the ones that are really, not doing well and we need to help them from themselves, we will put them in our in jail drug treatment program,
Hmm.
which is a very successful program. My clients hate to go to jail. Nobody likes to be in jail,
Mm-mm.
but the ones that are the toughest, the ones that are really, really struggling, have done so well in jail drug treatment because they get a good period of time when they're completely away from their people, places,
Mm,
and things that are
mm.
probably influencing some of their substance abuse. And we've had such great success with people going through that program. So I can't say enough good things about that, about Hillsborough County's jail program. And when they get out, we help them, acclimate back and get jobs and get a housing and sort of start over.
Suppose for a moment you win the election, you become a judge. To stay close to the success of these programs, I would think one would have to talk to the clinicians, talk to the the people in the judge system, excuse me, in the incarceration system. I mean, how are you going to keep fresh on that? It seems because you want to know how the programs are doing, and you want to hear from the people that are doing it, and also the participants. Sometimes when you're locked in I know when I work in my job, my company, I'm so much working in it, it's hard to work away from it and see it from the top. So it's a tall order to keep on top
Yeah.
of those things.
Yeah, it's a very good point. These problem solving courts are designed to be collaborative in nature with the judge.
Mm.
That's why, in that role as the Marchman lawyer, that was where I got to really work
Um,
closely with the judge.
mm,
So they're not really sitting up here in that capacity. This is more of a sitting together to do it. And
mm.
we really do. We staff the cases, we talk about them together. And we do that with the clinicians. We do that with drug court counselors that are in the courtroom. We even have representatives that come from the crisis center and they watch court and they stay, they hang out with us. And if they see something that they can offer a service for, I had a client the other day who was struggling with transportation, was struggling with housing, and the gentleman from the crisis center, he's a great guy. He was there and he was like, I can help this guy. And as he was walking out, he said, "Here's my card," and they connected, and he helped him get housing and helped him get a
Oh,
bus pass. And we work real closely in those problem solving courts. Where we have a couple. It's Marchman that does the drugs. We have a Baker Act court, which is more mental health. We have a drug court, an adult and juvenile drug court. So there's opportunities for the judge to be in more of a um, peer
mm,
scenario where they're not just up here all the time making
mm.
decisions. It's a little bit more team building, team working together, team effort.
Christine, how do you anticipate? Lawyers will present their cases, and there's the law, and then there's the intent of the law, and sometimes the words don't match that, and there's some gray area there, and you're going to be presented, by two sides of an argument. Both follow the law, but there's intent involved. I mean, how do you weigh that decision? That's oh my goodness, that's such a burden.
I think preparation is the most important
Mm,
thing. I always laugh because I don't know if judges don't know, but like we know when you don't read our things. So, as a
mm,
lawyer, as a practitioner, especially in private practice, I'm very thoughtful when I draft a motion. I draft a motion, I'll append exhibits to it, I will refer to those exhibits. And then, of course, I'll provide my case law. And
hmm,
you give them the case law and you say, okay, this is how my case, the case that I'm arguing to you, matches up with this case that's sort of giving
mm.
us an idea of how to handle it. And I always know when they haven't read what I've sent them because
Really?
yes, because we get into court and it's like, okay, well, tell me about the case, and it's like, well, maybe we just talk about whatever issues we have, and we can get down to the crux of it rather than like regurgitating the whole motion again or
Mm,
having to read to you what the case law says. And I know, I'm also very much aware that with hundreds and hundreds of cases you can't possibly
right.
get to everything, so I do give grace there. But I think that it's really important to at least have tried to read it or at least give it a good look over glance so that you have an idea of what's already being presented to you. So when you get into court, the ideal situation would be, all right, guys, here's where I'm hung up. I'm hung up on this issue. All right, I agree that X, Y, and Z, yes, that's going to be ruled in this way, but where I'm really stuck is on this act, this part. We
Mm,
talk about that. Let's farm out that issue and then have each side kind of work through whatever it is that is making it difficult to make a decision rather than, kind of going back over all of it. So preparation, I think, is the most important thing. Giving the advocates an opportunity to really get across everything that they're going to want to tell you and recognizing that they can't do that in a small period of time, that they have you face to face. So if you can be somewhat ready for where they're coming from, and where you're hung up, I think that you could really get down to the meat of it. So preparation, I think, is one of the most important things.
Yeah, I speak to friends and colleagues who, are nervous about public speaking, or they're nervous about it, and I just say, just be prepared. Just if you're
Yes.
prepared, it helps you through it. What are the best things? What are the pros about being a judge? What are the benefits?
The benefits, I think, is being able to reach so many people, being able to connect with the community, especially in the role of a county judge. You can really um, set a standard not only for the people who work with you in your courtroom, but for the people who come before you, that
Mm,
they're getting access to you, fair access to you. If they have a problem and they file something, that you're going to hear them out, that they can feel comfortable in your courtroom. That they come in and they're not feeling that they're not worthy if they don't have a lawyer with them, and that you are open and unassuming when you're hearing their arguments. And back to the practical part of running the courtroom, there's a lot of people in that room that aren't litigants.
mm,
The clerk, the bailiffs, in my case, the drug court counselors. There's a lot of people who make a courtroom work. And I
mm,
think that I've been blessed to work for judges that bring some levity to how serious a place a courtroom is.
mm,
And I've always really appreciated that, because it makes it enjoyable for people to come to work every day. And I think if you can make it a place where people want to come to work, that is translated to how we serve the people who
mm.
come into the courtroom, because we're in a good mood and we have a positive attitude and we're not feeling stressed out. And that, I think, translates to how people feel when they walk into a courtroom. They can feel the vibe that the tone that the courtroom is set. So, and I think that's an important role for the judge too.
Hmm. So those are the benefits, Christine. What's the downside? What are the cons?
Probably the cons are going to be those hard cases, I think, the ones that you
Mm,
probably get hung up on and have to make a decision that maybe you don't agree with personally, but that's what the supported by
ah,
the law. And maybe you feel a little internal struggle over that,
hmm.
because that's the rule is you follow the law. You don't do what Chrissy wants to do. You do what the
Right.
law tells you to do. And I think that comes some internal struggle. You might be, that may be difficult at times when you have to make a tough decision. I think that's probably the con of it, most importantly. And I think also
Hmm,
a courtroom is also a place where people aren't having their best day. So I think that
mm,
another con would be trying to balance people's stress and the seriousness of something. Like in a drug court, for example, we lose people all the time.
mm.
And that's a hard thing when you're sitting in a capacity where that's happening all the time. It can feel very defeating that you're not doing enough. So that's what I've seen in practice, and
Hmm.
with the with working with the judges and what they struggle with. I think that even just yesterday, we had a client who unfortunately lost his battle to addiction. And you
Hmm.
can always tell it weighs on the staff, it weighs on the judge.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Are all the cases recorded, video and audio?
Now they are. You used to have to order a court reporter for everything. In county court, they record them, and we have that capability to do that now. And they're housed by court business, where you can get an audio and then send the audio to a court reporter to transcribe it if you need
Hmm.
like an actual transcription, like a to give to the court, or a pin to your motion if you needed it written up. But yes, most of it is all audio recorded now.
I don't know if it's just my feed, or when I don't do it often. When I go through Instagram and I see the videos, there's more and more like court cases being put into my and so I see the 30-45 second blurb of a particular case, and I didn't realize so many of them were recorded.
Yeah, well, we've always recorded them for purposes of keeping a record, but
Hmm.
now there are courts that are allowing those, the TikTokers and
Right, the
things like
public.
this. I watched this one judge. I mean, she's fascinating to watch, but she's on TikTok all the time, and she runs a felony court, I think out of maybe Georgia. And I always am surprised to see it because you always think of the courtroom as being sort of, I mean, it's open to the public, but not something that you broadcast, right? Because you have these people coming in and they probably don't want their business out there like that.
Yeah, do they have to sign waivers? It's a good point. Yeah, that's there's privacy involved. Yeah.
You would think, but I guess not. And I even see some of our judges, I've seen them on court TV before for like some high profile things. So I don't know how much autonomy you have when you're in a courtroom and you're on a criminal docket. Probably not, but I would think like TikTok, you're reaching so many people. It's not just like an episode of court TV. I mean, anybody could see that at any given time. I'm always like watching it to see if I see anybody that I know.
That yeah. Yeah, I guess at one point somebody signed or checked the box that said they're allowed to yeah, well, the judge would have to consent to it, or is it I don't understand the
She
implications there.
has to. She has to have been a
Yeah.
part of that. And I know that I've seen one time, like a lawyer trying to argue that he didn't want it to be on TikTok because they had a correspond. They were in felony like court, but they also had a family law case that was going on at the same time, like a
Mm,
divorce
mm.
collateral. And the guy was like, I don't want this to be on TikTok so that it could be used against him in his family law case. I'm like,
Whoa.
so true. Like, okay, like I get
Oh
that. And the
my
judge was like,
goodness.
it's all public. So
I didn't even consider that it could be admissible in court, some of the videos. That's fantastic. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's amazing. There's one judge up in Rhode Island, this old Italian gentleman, and he just keeps on coming up in my feed, and he's very nice, and he asks for the stories about what happened, and yeah, it's just I don't know. I think it's a good thing. I think people are getting more used to the judicial system, and it's not as as kind of cutthroat as somebody may think. What shows do you think? I mean, I just finished watching something on Apple TV. I forget what it was called. One of the David Kelly uh, uh, we can't even say shows anymore, can we? I don't know what we call them, but miniseries. I don't know.
series, yeah.
But are Law and Order are these things really fiction? Are they close to true? Do you watch any of them?
I mean, listen, I love Law and Order. In fact, I even have a sign. I don't know if you can see it. That's the Law and Order cast. It's signed. It was a gift that was
Ah,
given to me. It's one of my favorite things. And even, you hear that?
dun, dun, yeah, yes,
I'm a big Law and Order fan,
yes.
but more for its entertainment.
Mm,
It is definitely, dramatic and exaggerated and all those
of
things. I
course.
find, and sometimes I watch it just to say, "Oh, you can't do that," or "That's wrong,"
Mm,
or trying to like
mm.
pick it apart. But it's definitely a brilliant show in its entertainment factor. I also like the Glenn Close Damages, which was more of like a
Oh, yeah.
civil firm, still very dramatic and exaggerated, but well done and for entertainment purposes. Um, the best way to really find out what a courtroom is looking like is court TV. I watch that almost every
Mm,
day, all day. And now we have the ability to really get inside a courtroom through court TV and see what it's really like, except for the ones that they've been publicizing most recently have been the most wild cases I've ever seen. So maybe we give it a couple weeks to like die down and we can get back to some normal stuff. Because the last two
mm.
that I saw, the Karen Reed trial, and then the one with the actor Alec Baldwin. Did you see that? Those were
No.
those were two cases that were just absolutely outrageous, and I was just you would have thought that it was an episode of Law and Order because they were so crazy.
Let's talk about that Alec Baldwin case for a second. So it was thrown out. I don't know what you know, but it was thrown out of court because they didn't submit some evidence.
Right, a Brady, what we call a Brady violation. So the state has an obligation to turn over all of the evidence that they get in a case to the defense, and the defense has more like more leniency with that. There's different rules for the defense given what the evidence is. You can't just like rat your client out, but for the state, discovery is you give everything.
Yeah.
So in this case, there was a weird sort of way that they handled some bullets or ammunition that had come in from an outside source, and it got tagged under a different case number, and wasn't then it was subsequently not disclosed as part of the discovery in this case, and it came to light later on. And a Brady violation is, I mean, you just can't do that.
Right.
So And I have
Wow.
never seen that though. I've never seen I mean, I've seen people make Brady violations all the time, but not in a trial situation where you would already be sitting a jury and you're already in trial and then it comes up like
Mm.
all of a sudden, like the smoking gun, that really doesn't I've never seen it happen where somebody comes in
Mm.
and they're like, here's a murder weapon. And we're all like, oh, like Legally Blonde moment where you
Right.
like that doesn't happen. Everybody knows what everybody's doing. Everybody knows what the evidence is. And so to have it happen like in a real case, not on TV, was sort of like, whoa, I've never seen it happen.
That late in the process, it's just bizarre to me, and you have Alec Baldwin there crying and it's fascinating to me, the law. Christine, so you're involved with a lot of the community. You mentioned the Tampa Club. I think it was also you have a bunch with the youth, and how important is that to be involved with the community as a judge?
It's very important. You have to connect with the people. And, when you're out there, you get to really see what people care about and what they need when they come into the courtroom, like what they expect from a judge and from what that experience looks like. So being in the community, you also have to know what issues are going on. I talk a lot about mental health and substance abuse, and I have focused my community service in that arena because I find it a space that's so important. But those are issues that come before the court, not just in Marchman, but they come before the court across all courts. Those are
Mm,
things that we have to understand. And being out in the community and meeting people who are doing the work on the ground gives you an opportunity to be able to take that back to the courtroom and educate other people on how we handle those sort of those issues, especially in that space. And I have primarily devoted my time in that arena because I give it so much. I give it so much weight to how big an issue it is for our community as a whole. So,
hmm,
and also the community wants to see you, that you're not
mm,
just sitting up in your ivory tower making
mm,
decisions.
mm,
This shouldn't be a place where people are afraid to come to you and come talk to you because you're the honorable. Like, no, like we're part of this community. We are here to help this community and take care of the people. And they got to be able to come up to you and call you Chris or
mm,
Chrissy and not feel like you're just some guy making decisions in the sky. That's
hmm. Does everybody have to stand when you walk in the room?
It depends. I mean, there's courtrooms. The county court is a little bit more or less formal. So there's judges who, when they're bailiffs, when they come in, their bailiff will walk in front of them and they'll just tell the room, remain seated, remain seated, come to order. And then the judge will just take the bench. So nobody has to stand up. But as a lawyer, I would tell you that when the judge enters the room, you always stand up.
Mm, regardless of what the bailiff says.
Regardless,
Right,
I
right,
always,
because they'll look out of the side of their eye and they'll see. It's very interesting.
I always stand up, and you can, I mean, when you do it all the time, you're just sort of like, you're in Catholic church, you're just up,
Mm,
down, up, down, up, down.
mm, mm, mm. You're a lifelong Tampa resident. You were born here. Your parents are, you're Valrico, I understand, and you just love it here. It's a great community here in Tampa Bay.
It's the best. And I've loved being on the campaign trail and really getting out there and doing different things besides just in around here or just in the communities that I work with and, my community service or boards that I sit on. I don't know if people know how massive Hillsborough County is. It's
Hmm.
it's so big.
Really?
And yeah, when you're running a campaign, you got to go to, North Tampa, Carrollwood,
Mm,
Odessa. Then you got to go
mm.
as far south to Sun City Center. And then you got
Wow.
to go inside to Braden, Valrico, and Plant City and Riverview. There's so much ground to cover. So it's been fun getting to see all these different places. They're
Mm,
all places that I have been, but, not concentrated as much as it is in a campaign trail. And when you're trying to
mm.
be all over, but it's been fun to get to see all kinds of different things and do different things with different places in our community. That's so big.
Mm. And I heard you talk about going door to door. I didn't realize people still did that.
Yeah. Yeah, we do it, and I get a lot of pushback from the committee, especially like the ones that are, my age. We're a
Mm,
generation of ring cameras, and so we don't really like to
right,
answer the door. And if somebody knocks on the door, it's sort of like, why are you knocking on my door?
right. Are you Amazon?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, yes, Amazon. And, so I think it's funny because a lot of, thank God a lot of my friends have kids now because the kids get into it. They've been loving going door to door and handing out the door knockers and meeting people. But but you know, some of the more established voters, they love it. Come on
Mm,
in, have some coffee.
they're used to it.
Tell me about
Mm.
yourself. They love to see somebody come by and want to chat with them. So it gives us an opportunity to reach that community too, who are waiting for us to come by to chat with them.
And I'll make a generalization, but I'm gonna assume there's a lot of the baby boomers, and I would think that they'd be asking your political, Republican, red, blue kinda thing. Does
They
that
do
come
have
up?
those questions,
Yeah.
but they're really, it's been my experience that they're really open to have a conversation
Good.
about other things too. So it really
Mm.
gives us an opportunity to chat with them because when you're out there and people see you, you got, they tell you to have that 2-minute elevator speech. You got 2 minutes to tell them about yourself. And
Mm.
when you're in a group of people who are well accomplished and everybody that's running for judge is got a great pedigree and they're in the community and they have a lot of wonderful things that they could talk about, you don't really get an opportunity to connect with somebody, a voter who has to choose between all these wonderful options. So um having canvassing gives you an opportunity to sort of sit down with somebody if they'll let you in your house.
Canvassing, yeah. Has anybody ever wanted to have the conversation through the Ring doorbell? It's like, "What do you want?" Or did they
Yeah,
ever?
people will answer the ring and then they'll just say, "We're not home," and we'll just leave the door tag
I
for
see.
them. Yeah, yeah, all the time. What do you like? Who are you? What do you want? Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So I started my business in the 90s. Christine, I'm a little bit older than you, and I was working way too hard. And you're very familiar with this 14-hour days. And I was not paying attention to myself and eating poorly and a lot of soda, etc. And got myself up to 340 pounds,
Yes, I read that.
Yeah, and the doctor said to me, if I don't lose the weight, not going to see my daughter graduate. My daughter was just born. So, I'm driving home, punching the steering wheel. How did I let myself do this? And it's not just me anymore. I now have this, child, and spent the next 6, 7 months, lost about 130 pounds, kept it off. And people always ask me how they want a quick answer to everything. And I just say discipline. That's how I got a routine. I had willpower. Discipline is how I lost it. I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life, Christine Edwards.
That's probably it's a foundational part of everything that I think you do. I think you learn it too in law school. I think it's a learned trait. It wasn't something
Mm,
and I don't know if you felt like this. Do you feel like you just woke up one day and had discipline or
hmm,
took some work, right? To sort
absolutely.
of like get it. It starts, I think, with a mindset, setting an intention, a mindset, like having a goal, like losing weight, like you were talking about, or wanting to be a lawyer, wanting to be a judge, setting a goal,
Mm,
making that a very clear intention for yourself. The discipline part, I think, comes with planning, making sure that you are setting yourself up for success. Obviously, if you keep a refrigerator full of crap, you're
hmm,
not making it really easy for yourself to lose weight. But if you plan out what you're going to have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it's the same thing with like the job. If I set myself up the day before of how my next day looks like, it goes a lot smoother than if I just went to bed and sort of said, well, let's wing it, let's see what happens. I mean, sometimes we have to be able to, shift and pivot, but for the most part, I keep a very structured calendar.
mm,
But I think it's learned. You implement these sort of the things about planning or preparing, or even down to how you manage your time. So I have certain rules or tickers that I have for me when I'm doing work, which is I don't open my mail but 3 times a day, and there's certain days that I do that. Meaning email,
oh,
find it so distracting. He pulls me away from
right.
whatever I'm doing. I block off productivity time where
Hmm,
I take blocks of time that if I can find it right now on a trail, it's difficult. But when you're working, I think if you block out, I would do like 2 hours, no phone, no email, nothing. Set up, your water, your drink, get everything.
mm,
You're in it for 2 hours and you just bang it out for 2 hours. And then you can let yourself get distracted by a TikTok or an email or something else. Check your text messages. But if you like implement these little things that sort of help you, I think the discipline comes as a result of you kind of working on it, just like patience. I didn't have patience when I started.
Mm.
Implement a couple of different things to be more patient. So, I don't know, did you find out that how did you do it? What did you think?
Yeah, I like the way you said it. You're very systematic, aren't you? You set up these routines, you set up these processes, and I do very, very similar. I just,
Yeah,
if I have a routine, it's hard to start a new one. I try to tag it on to something else. I'm already doing this, so just try to add it on. But it's similar though. Yeah, just a lot of routine. I have this ongoing thesis that discipline is a spectrum of about 10 elements of some, focus, restraint, obedience, mastery, control, routine, order, willpower, direction, strictness, and then everything kind of permeates through there as I have these conversations. And there's no wrong answer. There,
right,
there's no wrong answer, right? I have some musicians that'll tell me I'm undisciplined. I'm against discipline, and they look at it as some kind of militant, But I'm saying, well, you play an instrument, doesn't that? By the way, there's no wrong answer. I completely understand you don't want to talk about it. That's fine, but I always wonder if there's just some discipline in anything that we do, even if it's self discipline.
right. Well, discipline kinda does seem like a hard word. Maybe that's
Mm,
why people are turned off by it, but like you said, like militant, very restrictive.
right.
But we all have to implement something. I think anybody who has had success in meeting a goal had to have some discipline to get there. Um, right?
Absolutely. Even if you're saying you're not, I remember talking to one educator in the UK, and they were like, "Oh no, I am undisciplined," because they had this very, militant father, and I kept on thinking of the Pink Floyd song, "Hey teacher, leave those kids alone," because that's where they're from, and it would kind of come together. But I love the insight, and it's become a theme in my life, whether I like it or not, and I love
Right.
talking to others about it. What motivates you, Christine?
Gosh, that's a good one. What motive? I think it has changed a little bit in whatever I was doing when I was a lawyer. I was always motivated by the success of my clients. I love to see a client
Mm.
get to the other side of something. Clients are always coming to you. As a lawyer, you see people on their worst days, whether they've been charged with a crime or they're going through a divorce or they're
Mm,
losing their kids. It's not ever good. It's always
mm,
bad. And
mm,
so I love to see my clients get to the other side of whatever their struggle is, whether it's recovering from an addiction or getting a new life post divorce or a new relationship or coming out the other side of a criminal case, maybe getting off of probation and then getting a job and sort of reacclimating back into fixing whatever their mistake was. I always found that the most important relationship that you have is really with yourself and
mm,
being able to uh, get my clients to a better place where they are more they've done something good for themselves, right? They've made their life better in some way. As an advocate, that's always been what motivated me.
mm,
Surely wasn't money. I always tell my people that if I could keep my practice open just by representing my friends and family, it would be a very successful business
mm,
in quantity, but I
mm,
wouldn't make any money doing it. But I've always wanted to, because especially when I first started, it was like help everybody. Like every cousin, every sibling, every aunt, every uncle, everybody that needed anything. It was like I can help you, I can help you. And then you realize like you have to run a business, you can't help everybody.
mm.
But I get self gratification in seeing them change their life, especially like Bobby. That was the biggest
Right.
sort of win for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Even as, just when I have colleagues and friends that are doing well and succeeding, if I played any role in it at all, it's so rewarding.
It really
Impact.
is. It really is, and it keeps you going. It makes you feel like you're doing good work, and I think that's what we're all trying to achieve. It if you're in a career that you're really passionate about, we're all trying to do good work. And how does that translate? It translates in how other people that are seeing you and you're a reflection of them. So
Mm,
as long as people were seeing the success of my clients and how well they're doing, then that made them think that I was good at my job, and that
mm,
was fulfilling in moving forward in my career and me saying, okay, I do good work. I put good work out there and people can be proud of that. Now running a campaign, I'll tell you, my niece, I have a niece and I have actually two nephews now, a brand new nephew.
Mm.
But my niece, Shelby, she's a spitfire firecracker. She is bossy and sassy and
Hmm.
all the things. And she just thinks that I'm the coolest aunt in the whole world.
Awesome.
And being in that role, yesterday I had to be in court and was going to be late to this event. And she says, "Well, I'll go set up your table for you and I'll have it all ready for you when
Oh.
you get there." And she was so proud. She was texting me while I was still in court and showing me all how she had set up the banner and put everything out for me. And so seeing like
Mm.
having a niece and like seeing how excited they are for me running this campaign, that surely motivates me because she
Mm.
gets to see the hard work and what we're doing to get to somewhere else and what that requires, and teaches her all kinds of things, work ethic and discipline and
Mm.
structure, and how important it is to get an education and all those things that we're trying to teach our kids. And so she definitely motivates me to do right by them.
So, given that motivation, Christine, how do you measure success?
Yeah, yeah, success is seeing the fruits of your labor come to
Mm.
fruition. Even seeing even my niece be so proud of me that she would
Mm.
want to be a part of it. Success is measured only by the people that I are around me that have helped me succeed,
Hmm.
and how I feel in this position now that I've gotten to a place where I feel like I can give it back to somebody else. I have a talent, I have an asset, I have something that I can give to somebody else that would make their life better, hopefully.
That's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful, Christine. I wish you good luck. Is that what we say to a candidate? Good luck? I don't know. I don't know what the
I think
yeah.
good luck. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, all
Yeah.
the best.
All the best.
Good
Yeah. Good luck
crush
in
it.
the
I don't
campaign.
know.
And it's happening soon. How can people get in touch with you? Anybody listening to this, how can they get in touch and know more about you?
Sure. So the website is voteedwardsforjudge.com. You can check that out. There's a bio there, a link there to the Facebook, the Instagram. Shelby even got me doing a couple TikToks if you're a
Nice.
TikToker. And then, of course, I give out my personal cell phone, 656-200-0092.
Wow.
And you will get me, maybe not that same day, but I will certainly call you back. I get voters all the time who leave me messages, and I call them and chat with them and answer their questions. So I welcome the interest, because people are going to the polls and they're kind of like, what about judges? They don't know much about it. So anytime
Mm.
I can share the message and that they are interested in learning more, I'm happy to do that. So
Vote edwardsforjudge.com. You're also on Facebook. Emails Christine at voteedwardsforjudge.com. And really looking forward to see what happens, and hope to see you out there in the campaign trail. Maybe we could have a cup of tea.
I would love that. You should come out to the Tampa Club. I'll host you. I'd love to have you.
Fantastic. Christine,
Yeah,
thank you so much for your time.
really a pleasure, Joe. I hope to see you soon. You too.
Thank you for listening and/or viewing Joey Pinz Disciple Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources, and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Disciple Conversations.